This time I'd like to call the Nash Board of Education meeting to order for the regular meeting. Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we will proceed with swearing in of re-elected Nash Board of Education members. I'd like to welcome Judge Sumner tonight. Judge Sumner, thank you so much for being here.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, sir. I believe that we're going to do Mr. Lamb first. Short version. All you say is I do. Okay. Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as a member of the Nash County Board of Education, so help you God?
I will.
Congratulations, sir. Ms. Chavis. You, left hand, raise your right hand. Up and around. No, seriously. You gonna mess me up. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as a member of the Nash County Board of Education, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations. You may take that pen was up here, or use yours. You get confused on these pens.
I was just, she got a pen per
Pen,
person,
yeah.
so yeah.
I use this one, shall I leave it?
You can take that one.
You can take it.
Yes, ma'am. No offense. No offense. And Mr. William Sharp. I can't hold it for you. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as a member of the Nash County Board of Education, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, sir. Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I believe you're doing the other ones remotely, is that right, by video?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Ricky Jenkins. And you got Miss Kelly Jenkins there with you.
No, I've got my son here, Judge Sumner.
I'm speaking to her, not you.
Where are you?
If you'll raise your right hand for me, sir. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as a member of the Nash County Board of Education, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Quite welcome. Ms. Evelyn Bullock.
Yes, sir, and I will affirm.
All right, that'll be fine. How are you this evening?
I am great. How are you?
Good. Thank you,
Sumner?
ma'am, for asking. Raise your right hand for me. Is it your solemn affirmation that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as a member of the Nash County Board of Education, so help you God?
I will.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ms. Sharonda Thomas Bullock.
Yes.
Hello there, Ms. Bullock.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand for me, please, ma'am. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office as a member of the Nash County Board of Education, so help you God?
I will.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ms.
Thank you.
Bullock. Mr. Chairman, I believe that completes the swearing at of all your members. And it's been my pleasure to do it again, sir. I cannot dream of going by December without swearing somebody in this board.
Thank you so
Always-
much.
always
Taking
enjoy
time
it.
out of your busy schedule to come and do that for us.
It has been hectic today, to say the least. We resumed jury trials in Nash County today, and it's been not a 3-ring circus, but a 5-ring circus. Trust me,
And I did check his temperature coming in.
he did, and it was probably over.
It was.
Well, I can tell you this crowd is guilty.
Mr. Superintendent, good seeing you again, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
At this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp,
Second.
second by Ms. Chavis. All in favor, Ms. Chavis?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards? Mr. Edwards?
They may be on mute.
Aye. Mr. Bizzett?
Aye.
Mr. Sharp? Mr. Dunton?
Aye.
Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Silver? Ms. Washington?
Aye.
Ms. E. Bullock?
Aye.
Ms. S. Bullock?
Aye.
Motion carried. I will entertain a motion to approve the board minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Ms. Chavis.
Yes, aye.
All in favor? Ms.
Aye.
Chavis? Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Bizzett?
Aye.
Mr. Sharp?
Aye.
Mr. Dunton?
Aye.
Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Silver? Ms. Washington?
Aye.
Ms. E. Bullock?
Aye.
Ms. S. Bullock? Motion carried. Recognitions. Ms. Catalano, Dr. Catalano.
Good evening, Chair Lamb, Vice Chair Washington, members of the board, and Superintendent Ellis. We have got one recognition this evening. This is for a Southern Nash Middle School teacher, Miss Morgan Dollar, who was recently recognized as a 2020 Extraordinarily Exceptional Educator. Miss Dollar has an amazing spirit and giving heart. She is being recognized as a leader in service to Southern Nash Middle School, while also providing instruction and support to students at Edwards Middle School. She has demonstrated her ability to engage, support, and instruct students with significant cognitive disabilities for Nash County Public Schools during this unprecedented time through the use of innovative technology and digital tools. Morgan manages both virtual and face-to-face instruction seamlessly with strong organizational skills. Her students actively participate during remote instruction while she and her instructional team support differentiated instruction through face-to-face synchronously. And she was recognized by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's Exceptional Children's Department too for her work with remote learning. So congratulations, Miss Dollar from Southern Nash Middle School. I believe she's watching us on YouTube tonight.
Okay. Congratulations. Thank you, Dr. Catalano. Public input. Tonight, we do not have any public input, so we'll go to the approval of consent agenda. Ms. Washington?
There is one item on the consent agenda. At this time, I'd like to make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Ms. Washington, second by Mr. Sharp. Ms. Chavis?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Bizzett? Mr. Sharp?
Aye.
Mr. Dunn?
Aye.
Mr. Jenkins?
Aye.
Mr. Silver? Ms. Washington?
Aye.
Ms. E. Bullock?
Aye.
Ms. S. Bullock?
Aye.
Motion carried. Business items, personnel recommendations. Ms. Privet?
Good evening, Chairman Lamb, Madam Vice President, Dr. Ellis, and members of the board. I am requesting your approval of the personnel action report presented tonight in closed session.
I will entertain a motion to approve the personnel recommendations.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Ms. Chavis. Ms. Chavis?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Mr. Bizzett?
No.
Mr. Sharp?
Aye.
Mr. Dunn?
Aye.
Mr. Jenkins?
No.
Mr. Silver? Ms. Washington?
Aye.
Ms. E.
Mr.
Bullock?
Lamb,
Yes.
Aye.
Ms.
Mr. Lamb,
Bullock?
Aye.
Yes, Mr. Edwards.
I apologize. I was speaking on the wrong thing. My vote is for no. My apologies.
Okay, motion carried by 8-3 vote. Donation, Dr. Catalano.
Good evening. We have two donations this evening. One of them, a donation to Benvenue Elementary School, who received a $2,500 donation to be used for a STEAM project and the continued success of their virtual learning program from the DeLeon Carter Foundation. Our second donation is a donation from Mr. John Bissett, who donated 3 low-pressure SCBA self-contained breathing apparatus and 1 high-pressured SCBA valued at $1,000 to be used for the Firefighter Academy program at Nash Central High School. The superintendent recommends approval of all donations as presented.
I'll entertain a motion.
So move with our thanks.
Motion by Ms. Chavis, second by Mr. Sharp. All in favor, Ms. Chavis?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes to this one.
Yes. Mr. Bizzett?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Thank you, Mr. Bissett. Yes.
Mr. Silver? Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock?
Yes.
Ms. S. Bullock?
Yes.
Motion carried. Policy proposals, Dr. Catalano.
Good evening. Tonight we have got 14 policies that are all policy recommendations from the North Carolina School Board Association, many of them temporary amendments to the policies due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the Nash County Board of Education Policy Committee recommends the acceptance of these 14 policies and waiving the final 30-day requirement so that they can become effective this evening.
I will entertain a motion for policy proposal.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we approve the 14 policies as presented and waive the 30-day wait.
Motion by Mr. Bullock, second by Mr. Sharp. All in favor, Ms. Chavis?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Does this one include the time change?
All of them.
I'm going to say no at this time.
Say yes. Mr. Bizzett?
Can you clarify what, Ms. Bullock, I was thinking during the policy meeting the other day, we were going to pull one of them out and discuss it. Is that correct?
We talked about that, but the majority did not agree with pulling it out.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Sharp? Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
No.
Mr. Silver? Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock?
Yes.
Ms. S. Bullock?
Yes.
Motion carried by 9-2. North Carolina, Nash County Public School 2025 District and School Improvement Plans, Dr. Catalano.
Good evening. So we presented in the work session the district improvement plan to the board, as well as the 29 individual school improvement plans. And the superintendent recommends the approval of the district and the school improvement plans as presented in the work session.
Any questions? I will entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Ms. Chavis. Ms. Chavis?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
No.
Aye. Mr. Bizzett?
No.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
No.
Mr. Silver? Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock?
Yes.
Ms. S. Bullock?
Yes.
Motion carried by 8-3 margin. Nash County Public Schools Strong Reopening Plan Update for information, Dr. Ellis.
All right, so good evening. Tonight, as an information item, we are going to present just really go over our reopening plan that we committed to for January 11th for secondary. Review that tonight with some updates. Go ahead. As you can see right here, secondary Plan B will be on similar tracks like we're doing in elementary, where we'll have a track 1, a track 2, and then there will be a virtual academy track.
Good evening. I do want to share with you the revised bell schedule for in-person instruction for our elementary students. It has been adjusted by 30 minutes to ensure that those instructional minutes are in keeping with our secondary schools. Note that the 30 additional minutes have been added to recess, so that should read plus 20 structured recess. So what that means is I've worked with Angie Miller to ensure that we have energizers throughout the day, and there will be 20 minutes of structured recess. And we've added an additional 10 minutes to intervention and enrichment. The teacher office hours have been adjusted by 30 minutes as well. Those times are from 2:15 p.m. until 3:45 p.m. each day. During that time, teachers will check in with the remote learners. They'll have planning meetings, PLC meetings, and provide small group instruction to any students who need additional support. So that would be intervention as well as acceleration.
Good evening. Wanted to talk with you today about the bell schedules with secondary schools. These schedules have been taken into consideration with principals. I had a lot of discussion and a lot of elements thrown at it. So just wanted to share this with you tonight. Middle school schedule at the top, you see this is from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Underneath, you will see what the daily schedule will look like. From 8 to 9 is teacher office hours, and then these will be because we do have for 6th, 7th, and 8th, these will be the time frames within the middle school that will be utilized for each grade level. And just making a note that 6th grade may have electives from 9:30 to 10:25, whereas 7th grade may have core 1 from 9:30 to 10:25. As far as traditional high school and Tar River Academy, we will run 9:30 to 3 p.m. Notice the office hours there for teachers are from 8 to 9:25 as well. And then it runs through the different blocks throughout the school day. Do want to just as a piece of remembrance that this is face-to-face, and it will be our virtual simultaneously. So teachers will be working through that with traditional high school. Then over to the right is our city high and early college schedules. They, on a traditional year, they run later as well. So you'll see that city will run from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and early college will be 10:15 to 4:30. These are really around the Nash Community College as well, when those courses can be taken. And also when those courses are operating according to the program that the students are involved in within those schools.
In adjusting the schedule for returning to school for in-person instruction, we had to ensure that we balanced our track 1 and track 2 days for our students. We heard from parents, and parents shared that there were too many colors on the calendar. So what we've done is we've gone back in response to the feedback that we received from the community as well as parents. The track 1 is indicated in the orange light color, and track 2 is indicated in blue. If you move down to the month of May, you will see that we've collaborated with principals from the elementary level, the middle school level, as well as the high school level, to ensure that we have balanced those instructional days as much as we possibly could. So the calendar originated in accountabilities and academics, but then from there we shared it with the principals, they gave us feedback, and we made adjustments. So if you see track 2 will have 31 days, and that's indicated in blue. Track 1 will have 32 instructional days. Next slide.
Ms. Smith,
Yes, sir.
going back to your original part of the presentation, when you said you were going to extend the days of the elementary school, where are you going to extend them? You going to extend them before 8, or are you going to extend them in the afternoon?
It is extended until the afternoons. We were getting out at 1:15. Beginning January 11th, we will get out at 1:45. So there's a 30 additional minutes added to the end of the day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next slide, please. I will not click on the non-traditional schools, but if you click on those calendars, you will see that Mr. Thompson worked very closely with the principals of those schools as well. And we've tried to balance their instructional days as well. The early college is a little off, but that was in the support of the Principal Sharp. City High with balanced their days, and it looks very much like our elementary and secondary traditional calendar. At the last board meeting, there were some questions regarding January 6th, 7th, and 8th. So in collaboration with the principals, we did want to clarify that January 6th through 8th are remote learning days. If you click on that link, and you don't have to click on that, we have given principals just an outline of some things that teachers can engage in during those remote learning days that have been designated by the district. The 6th and 7th are both student days. So what that means is all students shall have online instruction. So that means it would be live instruction on January 6th and January 7th. Deep cleanings will commence January 8th.
Good evening again. Come before you to speak briefly about the COVID-19 metrics as it relates to Nash and Edgecombe County and state of North Carolina. This particular slide shows the positivity rate for Nash County, Edgecombe County, and the state of North Carolina, and shows you the number of positive cases up to this point. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown of the total number of cases by age. And I would like to ask you to look particularly at the 25 to 49 age group and the 50 to 64 age group from North Carolina to Nash County and Edgecombe County. And as you can see, those two particular groups, in particularly the 25 to 49 age range, has the highest percentage for the state. It's 40%. Nash County is 38%, and Edgecombe County is 34%. 50 to 64, 20% for the state, 22% for Nash County, and 24% for Edgecombe County. And that would be our teachers' age group, our staff age group. So I wanted to point that out, that those two particular groups are the ones who are most impacted by COVID-19. Go to the next slide, please. As you all know, the state of North Carolina went to naming an alert system as critical and substantial. And this particular slide just gives you the definition of what a county or where a county would need to be in terms of its metrics to be considered critical or red, or substantial with being orange. For red, the county must have more than 200 per 1,000 individuals in their new cases within 14 days, with at least 42 cases in that 14 days. So for every 100,000 people within that county, if you have greater than 200 who have tested positive for COVID, that would be the first part in looking at that particular county or area as being critically or red. The next thing that would have to happen is one of the two items here, the percent positive being greater than 10%, or the hospital impact within that county, where it states here is having a high impact. And that would be that the hospitalization has met or reaching their ability to handle the number of cases that are coming in. So as an example, if Nash County had more than 400 per 100,000 who had tested positive, and the positivity rate was greater than 10%, then those two metrics alone would make it critical. Or if the hospital impact was at high and it had 400, then it still would be considered critical. And if you could go to the next slide, you'll get a chance to see here what I'm talking about. So with Nash County, if you look right now, and this is from November 6th through November the 19th, and I believe Dr. Catalana says this updates tomorrow.
They're updated every 2 weeks.
So every 2 weeks, this is updates tomorrow. But if you look for Nash County and the 14-day case rate, Nash County has 464 positive cases for every per 100,000 individuals. At this time, when this was taken, the positivity rate was 8.4%, and the hospital impact was a low impact. So it would not make our county a red, but it would make it orange. And if you look at Edgecombe, there's 433 per 100. And as you saw on the earlier slide, Edgecombe is now sitting at 11% with their positivity rate. So that could push Edgecombe over into being critical. Their impact on the hospital is moderate. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our staff COVID numbers from August 10th until the present, we've had 134 staff members who have tested positive. And you can see the breakdown by the particular time frames. And if we could go to from November the 3rd to the present, we've had 62 positive cases. So you can see that number is almost more than what we've had in the 3 previous months. It's slightly less, but pretty close to what we've had in the 3 previous months. The number of staff members who have tested negative from 8/10 to present, we've had 280. And you can see from 11/3 to the present, we've had 84 who have tested negative. The number of staff members quarantined but back at work from 8/10 to the present, 481. From 11/3 to the present, we've had 168. And currently quarantined, we have 85. So 85 of our staff members are currently quarantined and not back at work. This is our student slide. And if you're looking from 8/10 to the present, but the number of students who have tested positive is 58. We're looking at the number of students in Plan B from 11/3 to the present. We had 15 who tested positive, and students who were participating in events like athletics, we had 5. 8/10 to present, we had 64 who have tested negative. Plan B, we had from 11/3 to present, we've had 33 who tested negative, and other on-site, like our athletic events, we've had 2 who tested negative. From 8/10 to present, we've had 255 who were quarantined but back in school. In the Plan B, from 11/3 to present, we had 162 who were quarantined and back in school. And other on-site, we've had 10. For those who are currently quarantined students and not back in school, we have 90 from 11/3 to 12/7, and we have 14 from 11/3 to 12/7 who are considered others on site that would be participating in our athletic events.
So in this slide, moving forward, when we bring more students back in the building and knowing that we've had a recent surge, we're going to start looking at these individual cases. First, look at the individual who has a positive or who has been contact traced. We do all our information there. If we have to send the individual home, we'll do that. There might be now reasons that we would send a classroom home based on a positive case. Then it could possibly be a grade level or a hallway, depending on when we find out who the student or the teacher or the staff member is, where they were, if they were doing the 3 W's, if they were doing everything they needed to do. If something happens where we have to contact trace, we could have to shut down grade levels, hallways. And in cases like last week where we had as many as 19 staff members out, we would have to make a decision to close a school down as a quarantine. So just moving forward, we just need to make sure the more kids we bring in the building, the more these cases we're going to increase. So that's going to be something different. Mr. Farrow, if you want to speak to any of that, because we're doing some of that now, but I do realize when we bring a majority of our kids back, there's going to be more of this that we have to just be ready for.
Fortunately for us at this point, we have not had to quarantine too many entire classes. I think it's either been 2 or 3 classes at this point that we've had to quarantine. As Dr. Ellis said, when we have a situation where we find out there's a positive case, whether it's a student or a staff member, we immediately, our school nurses and the principals start with contact tracing. So they're trying to see where it originated, and then they're trying to find out who that particular individual has been in contact with. And then from there, they're trying to determine, were they within 6 feet? Did they have on their mask? They're trying to make sure that all of the guidelines that we have put in place have been followed. As they're going through their contact tracing, if they determine that one of the guidelines was not followed completely, or it may be that a group of students spent more than 15 minutes eating lunch, and while they were eating their lunch, their mask was off, and so that class had to quarantine. We're looking for those kind of things before we make a decision. And as Dr. Ellis says, we move forward with bringing more students back into the building. And if we find ourselves in a situation where a school is struggling in terms of trying to maintain school because of the number of staffs that's out of the building, then there's a team of us who will sit down with that principal. We will work through every scenario. And if we believe that it's in the best interest of that school and the staff and students there, then we would make a decision to close that school. These decisions are not made lightly. Whenever we're looking at closing a classroom, we're having conversations with the health department. Again, we're having conversations with our school nurses. We are incredibly lucky to have 19 school nurses who work for our school district. There are some school districts right next to us who don't have that luxury. So we are fortunate to have that. Those individuals are well-trained, well-versed, well-read. So many of them work in facilities outside of the regular school setting, so they understand COVID-19 well, how it works, and they bring that knowledge back to our schools and help us as we're walking through these processes.
Dr. Ellis.
Yes.
Is now the time to ask a question about that, or do I need to wait?
Right now it's fine.
Y'all just talk about how much the school nurses do. Who's doing all this contact tracing? Because that's a lot more to put on these nurses, especially when you have a situation when there's a lot of people, as you said, been exposed or whatever. Can they get some help in reference to this, or how does this process work?
So if an individual, we find out a person has been exposed to someone with COVID, or if an individual has COVID, our school nurses and the principal immediately begin to have a conversation with that person. And so from there, that's where the contact tracing starts. And it is usually being tag team between the school nurse and the principal. They're calling in individuals, they're talking through them, and then they're working through it. If we have to make phone calls home to parents, either the principal or the school nurse is doing it. Sometimes they do it together. Sometimes it's the school nurse who does it. That's a situation that's worked out at the school level between the principal and the school nurse. We have said to our principals that your school nurse needs to be your best friend in this process. They have the knowledge, they have the expertise. This is what they're trained to do. So you have to depend on them to help lead you as you're making these decisions. And then they also have Ms. Grant, myself, that they reach out to. And we have these conversations as well, because sometimes they get to a situation and they're not sure how they're going to approach it. So as a team, the principal, the school nurse, Ms. Grant, and myself, we have dialogue. Sometimes we call in the health department and we make that decision. But as far as the intricacies of doing the contact tracing, that is done at the school level by the principal and the school nurse.
Okay, thank you. But I just feel like a lot of this is getting dumped on the school nurses. At least it's what I'm hearing. So if y'all would please express to them to, I mean, even if we have to do some, I don't know how HIPAA works in reference to the, saying somebody was tested positive in reference to a Connect Ed sent out or whatever. But I feel like a lot of this is getting dumped on the school nurses and they're having to make all these phone calls. But thank you for the information.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I have some questions.
Okay, Ms. Bullock.
The first question relates to what Mr. Farrell just said. So the health department does not do this contact tracing? And if not, why don't they?
I'm not sure why not, but the health department, if they do contact tracing, it's because it's a possibility that we may have a cluster in a school building. And what that means is that we may have 5 or more who may stem back to one individual on that campus. But as far as the routine contact tracing, that has to happen at the school level with our staff. And it is a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift for our school nurses. It's a heavy lift for our school principals. We certainly wish that we had more resources. And when we've been able to do things to try to put resources in place to help our schools, we have. But it is a heavy lift. And sometimes I know I've been on the phone with nurses and they've been contacting people as late as 9 o'clock at night. And principals have been a part of that process as well.
And that's the reason I ask that is because why is not the state Department of Health and Human Services doing this contact tracing? I thought that was part of the reason for the hiring of so many contact tracers, so that individual schools or entities wouldn't have to take on that responsibility. Have we talked to them about doing the contact tracing? I understand if it's just 1 or 2, but if we've got a cluster, and I would think even more than 1 or 2, because that could be extensive depending upon where that person has actually been. And I agree, that is a heavy, heavy load for our nurses who are already overworked and overwhelmed.
I can't really say, Ms. Bullock, why it's set up that way. I do know that I've had many conversations with the health department, and in the event that we may have the possibility of a cluster, they do contact trace at that point, because what they're doing is they're trying to make the community connections as well. So they're contact tracing from a different perspective, where when we're contact tracing, we're looking solely at, okay, where did it start? Now that it came to our building, who were you in contact with here?
Okay.
Mr. Farrow, can I piggyback on Ms. Bullock?
Yes, sir.
So we are now requiring people to sign when they come in and out of the classrooms to, my understanding was one of the nurses explained to me that is to lighten the load on them for contact tracing.
Say that again, sir.
So to help that. So anytime someone enters a classroom now, they're having to sign in and log out. So if someone gets sick, they pick up a piece of paper and pretty much the contact tracing is done for them.
I do know
don't think
that
it's a heavy a lift as we think it is. And I mean, I do contact tracing every day of my job. I got about 100 and some people right by myself to do, so it's not as hard as trying to contact the whole neighborhood, Miss Bullock. I think you're right on with your question, but it's not. I mean, at the school, it's not that hard.
If it's just one or two, perhaps I could see that, and then it depends upon where that one or that second person has actually been. I know what the restrictions are, but as we very well know, we don't follow restrictions very well. So that one person could have gone anywhere. And that list I can imagine that list could be more than 5 or 10 people. But I think that's something we need to question at state level. My second question goes to opening schools and when possibly we might close or a class or a hallway or a school. My question is, will they have to make up those days, Dr. Ellis? Mr. Farrell?
No, we would consider those. We would just move that group into a Plan C and they would be remote. And the attendance requirements, just like if they were in Plan C, would then take in effect.
Okay. My last question is with the metrics, with the numbers going up and the metrics so high, at what point would we even consider closing district-wide? I know when we discussed it at our previous meeting back in November, I voted for us to go under Plan B with the caveat, and I mentioned this, that if our metrics were going up, that we would reconsider that vote. And it seems like that's not one of the things that we're interested in doing. So I won't, as a member of the board who voted in favor of it, I won't ask that we bring that back up, because I know I would be in the minority. But I do want it known that if I could go back and change my vote, I most definitely would, because I do not like where we're headed. And I thought at least we would consider what the numbers look like. And it seems like we're not even considering that, but we're going to go ahead with Plan B. So I just want it known that I am not in agreement with this. And though this is for information only, there won't be a vote tonight on this. But I do want it known that I am not in favor of this plan. Thank you.
So last month, the rate was 13%. It's 8 now. My concern is not the state and the positivity rate as much as it is if we're going to have enough teachers to operate a school. So to me, we have followed metrics from the Nash County and the Edgecombe. We followed all that, and that has decreased from last month. What my concern is to have a plan that when we start opening these schools, that there might be pockets where we aren't going to be able to run these schools. So we have followed metrics. Our group, I feel, has done a good job. My concern now is when you bring more kids in, when you have contact tracing, you got more teachers in the building, that's where my concern is going to be.
Dr. Ellis,
Yes.
the only thing I ask of with this is for some type of reassurance that administration, all the way through teachers, is accountable for the mask wearing and the social distancing, because people keep dropping their masks and they're catching the COVID. So let's be a little bit more accountable on that. And I think that will reduce the chances even more of these pockets.
I agree with
Do you
that.
agree?
Yeah, I agree with that, Mr. Evans, because that has been the issue that we keep reinforcing to the principals, is that we got to have everyone on the same page, because if we follow these guidelines, then that's going to help that if a kid's in a class and he's got COVID, but if everyone else is 6 feet apart, they're wearing their mask and they're following guidelines, then that means we would only isolate an individual, because you're right. But once we start venturing off of what we're supposed to be doing, you're exactly right. That's when it gets into an issue where you have to send kids home, you have to shut things down. And that's our issue, but you're right. That's the point.
Well, make it happen, okay?
I'll write that down then.
I just want to know how we're going to make that happen when we as adults don't even follow the guidelines.
It's called accountability.
I just put that out there.
And I'm putting it out there. We need to hold these people more accountable. And until we take it serious and hold them accountable, then yes, they're going to go rogue. And
So Ms. Privet or Ms. Wallace, you're next.
Okay, good evening. As of today, December 7th, we have 2 employees that are out for COVID-19 leave. And to be eligible for COVID-19 leave, no telework is available for the employee. And the employee must have been advised by a healthcare professional to self-quarantine related to COVID-19. Additionally, or the employee is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking a medical diagnosis, or they have tested positive for COVID-19, or they are caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed. As of today, we have 107 employees that are approved to telework. To be approved to telework, the employee must be age 65 or older, or any age with an underlying medical condition approved by the CDC that puts them at increased risk for COVID-19, pregnant during COVID, or is caring for someone with an underlying medical condition. An employee can be approved to telework by their principal if they have been exposed to a COVID-19 positive person, have been instructed by their school nurse to quarantine or get tested, or if the employee tested positive. An employee is approved by the HR director for the telework accommodation when they provide medical documentation for an underlying medical condition that puts them at increased risk for COVID-19. Of the 107 employees, 74 are teachers, and of the 74, 29 are elementary teachers, 13 are middle school teachers, 32 are high school teachers, and the remaining 33 employees are a combination of teacher assistants, counselors, receptionists, instructional coaches, psychologists, media coordinator, data manager, principals, and central office staff.
Angie?
Good evening. I'm going to share a little with you in reference to school nutrition and athletics. As far as the school nutrition piece, we'll be doing breakfast and lunch in the classroom as part of their instructional day. We will also continue the drive-through service that will be continuing all the way to June 30th. And yes, per federal and state guidelines, we will not be doing student number. This will be provided for all of our students that are in classrooms learning or are at home and can do the drive-through service. For athletics, at this time, I'm going to share with you that as far as high school is concerned, the High School Athletic Association has approved to continue with sports. We're involved heavily with volleyball. We are running cross country, have a conference tournament next week. This Wednesday. Swimming is continuing and it has many modifications with no spectators. And basketball tryouts started today, and we're meeting all state guidelines and practice guidelines. At this point, they are all masked at all times, practice during games, and they will be masked even during extensive, training or activities. So that will be high school, and they are moving forward now back to the middle school. And I've attached a lot of links here. These are also links I've shared with you on the Friday footnotes. The middle school link, we are still working on the schedule, but right now we will begin in January with our winter sports. We will have to meet all state mandates as far as spectators. We are working on some of those specifics at this time. As for high school, for basketball, we are going to be using the links provided here for games. They are still at the 25 spectators during the course of the day, and we are still able to meet those needs at the home. If it's a home game, if it's an away game, we do not allow spectators to travel.
Good evening. Just wanted to share with you the numbers that we're transporting now compared to last year. So 2019-2020 school year, we transported 62% of elementary students, which was 4,764. Secondary was 65% of that population, 5,982. This year, we are doing 32%, which is 2,094 of elementary students, and anticipate 34% of our secondary when they come back January 11th, 2,755. Numbers may go up or down a little bit as we get a little closer, but that's what we are routing the kids based on. Any questions?
All right, as you can see, as of today, the technology department has been successful at deploying 12,598 devices to students. And I just want to take the time just to say that I'm very thankful to my fellow cabinet members, the technology staff, as well as the media coordinators, and most of all to our principals for their collaborative effort to deploy student devices. As you know, we have already purchased devices for ours to support remote learning. And of those devices, we have already received 3,070 devices. And those devices are earmarked and designed for the pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade. So pre-K and kindergarten, those devices have already been distributed and given out to students who want them. Our first grade devices, we have just received those maybe a week ago, and we are in the process of deploying those and getting those out to our students. And as you see that next number, we have about 3,411 devices that we're still waiting on. And with that said, those devices are designed for our second through fourth grade devices. Now, they currently have a device right now, but with these new devices coming in, what we will do, we'll replace these devices, the devices that they currently have, with the new devices. And oh boy, we cannot wait. These devices are, the devices that they currently have right now, these students' devices are tearing up, in other words. So once we get the new, sir, they're worn out. They are worn out. Yes, sir. So once we get the new devices, I think we'll be in a very good position. All right. Any questions for me? The devices that currently have are the old ThinkPads that we had about maybe 5 years ago. They worn out and obsolete. Oh, we warm out. Yeah. Yes, sir. Well, they're the life of those devices. They were about 5 or 6 years old. Yeah. Okay. You call that. All right.
Not lightweight on.
Good evening. On the next few slides, we will provide an update on the percentage of our students participating in face-to-face instruction and virtual instruction under Plan B. This slide shows the percentages for preschool. Enrollment has continued to increase since our transition to Plan B in September. In the first column, the sites are listed along with the total enrollment and the number of classes at that site. In the second column, it has the percentage of students who are participating in face-to-face instruction. And the third column has the percentage of students who are participating in virtual instruction only. As a district, 79% of our preschool students are face-to-face and 21% are currently virtual.
And following with the same pattern as what Ms. Hargrove Jones just presented with the preschool, these are the same numbers with the percentages for our face-to-face students and our percentages of virtual students. If you look at the bottom, we have 71% of our students in our exceptional children's self-contained extended content standards classrooms being face-to-face, with 29% virtual for the elementary level. And the next slide will show us the secondary, middle school and high school percentages, with our face-to-face being 57% and 43% virtual. We do have some students who will be returning in January who have been virtual, so we should see a little change in that number starting back in January when other students return back.
Our elementary principals are in the process of continuing to survey all of our virtual students to determine which ones would like to return for in-person instruction. If you look at the total number of students who will be returning in January for elementary, we're at 59.6%, and 40.4% will continue virtually for the remainder of this school year. I do want to share that we do have about 2.4% of more of our students returning for face-to-face instruction, which means we have fewer students who will participate in the online learning environment in the spring for our elementary students. Mr. Thompson will talk to you about secondary.
This slide demonstrates the middle and high school participation for January the 11th, students returning to Plan B. If you notice beside each school, there's N equals, which is the sample size of each school. That's how many surveys have been completed for each school. As of now, you will see there's a column for middle bin on the left side, high school on the right side, but the column for face-to-face percentage and virtual percentage. Right now, we're looking at, for middle school, 64.6% returning back face-to-face and 35.4% remaining virtual. And with high schools, we're looking at 61.7% returning face-to-face and 38.3% remaining virtual for January.
So at this time, I will talk to you about the overall attendance since our students have started participating in virtual as well as in-person instruction. So that first row indicates the total number of Nash County Public School students who have actually missed 3 to 5 days, 1,564. That second column indicates the percentage of students in Nash County Public Schools who have missed 3 to 5 days during the first grading period. The third column represents students who have missed 6 to 9 absences. That fourth column outlines the percentage, which is 8.29. And then we had a total of 3,073 students who have missed 10 or more days during the first grading period. This data was pulled last Sunday evening, November 26th. If you look at the total number of students in our district who have missed a total of 10 or more days, 22.39%. That is an alarming number. But then if you dig a little deeper and you look at our elementary students, you're looking at 24.54% of those students have missed 10 or more days. High school follows with 22.18 days, and middle follows with 21.17 days. So working with student services, we've provided some wraparound services where we've hired additional staff to work with our principals and schools to reach out to these families. These numbers have gone down a little bit, but we have not seen a significant decrease. So that is one of our challenges. We have some students who have not shown up at all. Then we have some students who log in for online instruction, but they may not submit their work. So when students are working virtually or engaged in the remote learning environment, a student who completes his or her assignments either online or offline are counted present. So we talk about a heavy lift for teachers, and talking to principals, that's a heavy lift because a lot of our teachers are going back to check attendance to ensure that kids are coded accurately. But also, if there's a two-way communication system set up where teachers are checking in with kids every day as appropriate, that is also counted as a attendance, and students get credit for that as well. The next slide Mr. Thompson will talk to you about the grades. And we do know that student attendance has a direct correlation to our pass rate for our students. So Mr. Thompson will talk to you about that.
So we wanted to share with you, along with attendance grades as of now. We have been working with principals tremendously, delving deep into data with this. We picked up on it early, and we really have been combating this at this time. Just as Mrs. Smith mentioned, attendance has a correlation with grades in many cases. With this slide, what it is showing is the actual numbers of total numbers we have in Nash County Public Schools at this time. The first column is currently failing one or more classes. And this breaks down for elementary, middle, and high school. The middle column actually shows our membership of students that we have in our schools right now, the total number. And then the last column gives you the percentage of students who are failing one or more classes at this time. I can tell you right now, our principals and down to our teachers are on this. They are working very hard. I know when we delved deep into this in a data session, that they went immediately back into their schools and did a lot of investigation on things as far as what students were missing as far as assignments, as far as if attendance had correlation with it, to try to work out this issue. And they're continuing these conversations, but we thought it was important to share with you tonight.
So this is the wrap up, of our progress for second semester and moving forward, hopefully to January 11th with Plan B, which would mainly involve the introducing of the secondary, middle, and high school. So are there any questions at this time that you'd like to ask?
It still is a compulsory attendance law, right?
I imagine there would be. I don't know how much of the enforcement would be this year, but.
I have a question.
It's disheartening to see attendance with the choices our students and parents have at this time. And as hard as our teachers are working to try to keep the students up to grade level as much as possible or beyond. It's just disheartening to see there's not that much buy-in that you can have 25% to miss 10 or more days is just unheard of.
In doing our attendance, are we insisting that teachers also record these lessons? Because there are some parents that have 3 or 4 children who are virtual, and you are expected to have all 4 of those kids in front of a teacher at a given one time of the day. So a lot of parents are leaving children with grandparents who are not savvy technology wise, and they have to work with them when they get home after dinner. So I've had a lot of people asking about, are we recording everything so that that child has a deadline? It's not like you can get around to it two weeks from now, but a deadline where that parent has ample time to sit with each child to make sure they are up to speed. Because if you are grading that child absent because they're not sitting right there with that teacher at 10 o'clock or whatever that time is, there are 2 or 3 other kids in the family that need to be online at the same time. So how are we working with those parents?
So speak to the attendance, because there's many ways you can get counted present now.
Well, my first question, are they recorded?
I want to say about 2 board meetings ago, that was one concern that several board members had. So it is a requirement now that all teachers either record lessons or use standards-based lessons that are already embedded in our platforms. I can tell you, in working very closely with Mr. Thompson, as well as our instructional coaches, those that is happening. We're doing virtual learning walks, and we actually see when we log on where teachers are recording those lessons. So to address the attendance piece, that is one piece that we have been wrecking our brains with. And what we tell our principals is to work diligently to ensure that we have relationships with families and that we're having those 2-way check-ins with families. Our dilemma is, not being able to control what is outside our circle of influence. If you look at the highest number of students who have missed 10 or more days, I don't think it's coincidental that it's our elementary students. And it's because a lot of those students are not self-sufficient. So they do whatever, their parents work with them to do. But we've talked to principals about giving families grace during this period. So even though we've set some hard deadlines when work should be submitted, and we usually give them 7 days, a good solid week. I talked to an elementary principal who has gotten permission to go back to 10 days because he's having such a hard time with his students submitting work and having that attendance counted.
Can I ask one other thing? I've had a couple parents to say the scheduling, they will set up a time that they're going to work and make sure their children are doing what they're supposed to do. It's going to be live at this time. And the teachers change the schedule. I know we can't control everything,
right?
But they've taken time off work to be at place to do this. And then, oh, today if they're not doing it, they're going to do it this time. So is there a consistency built in? Because if they're trying, and some parents are really trying too, how are we working with keeping it at least consistent?
Right. We have shared with principals templates of schedules that they would use for all 3 cohorts. One thing to keep in mind is online learning doesn't equate to the same amount of seat time as face-to-face. And we've talked to principals about those schedules should not be fluid, especially online. If we know that parents are expected to tune in at a certain time, if there's an emergency and something changes, it needs to be in Seesaw, which is our LMS. It needs to go through Dojo or Canvas, just letting families know that maybe something has come up. It can be a teacher who's quarantined.
Or technical.
Right. Who actually just cannot meet with kids face to face.
I have a question, sir.
High school kids. In a normal year, a high school kid would be the one that's missing 10 or more days. When you flipped it based on supervision, student's age, because like Ms. Smith said, they don't have that support.
Mr. Thompson, is there anything that you want to add from secondary?
I think it's the same as you were speaking of. We do try to do the recorded pieces along with it. Assignments are within Canvas so that the students can have that opportunity to do some self when they have time and can work with their parents. But some of the same things right now we're combating in the secondary as well, as far as turning in assignments and those types of things as well. So Ms. Nancy Smith, I think it goes along with just what you said as well.
Thank you.
I have a question, Dr. Ellis.
Is it another attendance question, Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, you were talking about you are pretty sure that they're recording these classes. I had a parent call me and tell me that their child could not attend class, so they went back and tried to find it being recorded. This was in the last week or so, and there's no recording of these classes. How many of these classes that you're talking about are being recorded? Is there a percentage, or who's responsible for making sure this is done, or just give me some answers? That's basically what
I want to make sure you're finished before I respond.
Oh, yes, I'm done.
So it would be very difficult for me to give you a percentage. But what I do know is that Mr. Thompson and I have both communicated to principals our expectations of having lessons recorded. And Dr. Ellis has also shared with principals that that is a non-negotiable. As I stated, we have purchased digital resources that are standards aligned. So if a teacher is not recording his or her lessons, it could mean that they have made an assignment within one of our digital resources that has a video that a child can watch in lieu of the teacher recording the lesson.
Okay, my next question, and don't take this wrong, but who came up with this 9 a.m. to, or 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. for working parents? I mean, I can't, I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get my children to school, as well as other people in my community have expressed. I mean, if most jobs are from 8 to 5.
I'll be glad to speak to that.
Okay. Sure.
Please remember that when we start these schedules, when it comes to transporting kids, it's not like it used to be. You still can only now, under Plan B, we can only put about 20 kids on a bus, whereas we used to put 70. When I talked to Mr. Lickey, because I was trying to add it up myself, if we were to go with a regular high school schedule or a middle school schedule, our first bus would probably pick up around 5:30 in the morning. Because when that bus hits the elementary school, now we have to clean the bus. There's about a 30-minute window now between going from middle school to high school and elementary, because we got to clean the bus. The kids are having forms, attestation forms in the elementary school. These guidelines under Plan B, I want you to understand, you're exactly right. We don't have an answer for a parent that has to get to work. We can try our best to figure out some sort of a before school care program that maybe some of our community partners can help us with. But when you're under Plan B, I want everyone to understand it is not normal school, because even if you were to flip it again, that means kids would be getting home later, because you have such limited amount you can transport these kids, and it just doesn't work. Other districts who are in Plan B are basically doing what we're doing with starting the middle and the high school at these times, because they tried it as well and it just didn't work. Now under Plan A, that means you'll have full capacity on buses. You can have all those in a regular year, but right now under Plan B, it's not going to happen.
And Dr. Ellis, may I add that in attending all of the secondary transition to in-person meetings, hats off to Mr. Thompson, who actually uses the gradual lease of responsibility. He shares information with the principals. They have a week to chew on it with their staffs, but actually it was the secondary principals who looked at the fact that elementary families had already been in school since October, and we did not want to disrupt the schedules that those families had. So working collectively, the secondary principals made the recommendation to start their instructional day after elementary, which they decided on 9:30. In talking to other school districts, they were using somewhere around the same time. So Mr. Thompson and I were in support of their recommendation.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Lane.
Mrs. Dancy Smith, just a quick question. For the secondary students where everybody is remote at this moment, if a teacher is not available to administer remotely that day, they're sick, they're called away for whatever reason, what is the expectation? I know a substitute isn't going to be able to probably step in and deliver that day's course. How is that handled?
So I'm going to let Mr. Thompson chime in, but that is why those LMSs, which are our learning management systems, are so critical while we're doing this work, because it affords teachers the opportunity to communicate with their students upload their assignments, and that would be at an asynchronous day for children, which means they would work independently on assignments from home. Mr. Thompson, if you would share what that would look like in a high school.
Yeah, so we have been talking with principals already, so to be proactive. One thing we're working on is teachers having some lessons prepared just in case they are out sick, because the LMS is something that the students can navigate through on their own and see assignments and work assignments just like they would with the teacher. That's the beauty of the LMS system. So we're working on that. Of course, we would want a sub where we can for supervision if it was an in school, in person type of thing. But if as long as we're online, those would be the things. And hopefully, unless it's a major issue, most of the time that what we've noticed is that teachers have been able to, in most cases, they've been able to continue to work even if they're having to work at home because of an illness sometimes. Now, sometimes they will not be able to do that. We understand that, but we do understand this has honestly given us more flexibility with some teleworking and teachers. It's a little different than the teacher being out of the building, like when we were fully face-to-face. So that really has helped.
Thank you. But I guess just to clarify, there would be an expectation that it would just not be communicated to that class that we're not having class today.
That's correct, sir. It would not be, we're just taking the day off. No, we will never say that.
Okay.
We're going to try. And if someone is saying that, we definitely need to know that because our expectation is that even if a teacher is out, there's going to be something there that is constructive, that relates to standards for the student to do. And if not, we definitely, if we don't know about it, we definitely want to hear about it because we will make sure that happens.
Okay. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith.
Yes, sir.
Hey, just a question back to elementary. How are you making sure that the classes or any of the videos or any of the video games that are being played by some of the classes are of worthy learning?
So starting last year, we had a process to vet all instructional resources that teachers wanted to use in the classroom. So that's not a new process. And again, we worked with principals because principals are the first line of defense. So a lot of our work has been around lesson planning and PLCs and encouraging principals to be a part of those conversations, because if they are, then they really would know, specifically in an elementary school, what resources are being used. So I'm not going to stand before you and say that some of our teachers are not venturing outside of the resources that we've provided, but before COVID, we had a process in place where all resources were vetted. They were added to our curriculum map page, and teachers knew what resources they could use based on the vetting process that we had in place.
Okay, we may want to look at that since it's now after COVID. It's a lot like some of us board members are getting inundated with, hey, do you think this is good for kids to be learning? And then I have to sit there and watch a video game with the child. And it's like, okay, I don't know. I'll have to ask Miss Melissa Dancy Smith if this is curriculum oriented. And so that's what I'm doing. Plus you have one school who, and I want to see how consistent this is for district wide, is they're on like a 2-week schedule. So what they do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of 1 week, they'll turn around and do it again the very next week with the reasoning that since they're doing 1 week virtual and 1 week in person, then 2 weeks ought to be able to cover it. And some of the parents are worried that their child is just not keeping up with the rest of the district.
So I think in times like that, Mr. Edwards, it goes back to what Mr. Thompson shared. It's very difficult for us to fix things at the district level if we're not aware of changes that are happening. We should not have any schools on a 2-week rotation, as that was not the district's communication or our expectation, but we can talk offline and we can address that situation on a case-by-case basis. That should not be a consistent practice district-wide in the elementary schools.
Okay, I was just going back and forth with some of the emails that I've received back from the superintendent. So we'll hit it again then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Overall, I think the feedback I've gotten from the majority of the parents are that the teachers are doing an excellent job, and they realize and they're trying to be patient because they know this is a huge adjustment for the teachers, for the students, and the families. So a lot of the parents are stepping back saying, despite everything, they are more than satisfied. However, teachers have to be aware. There are parents that literally pull up their cell phone and show me video of what's going on in that child's classroom. Grandparents are sitting there recording it on their phone, and some of it doesn't look that great. So they need to be aware of the fact that, yeah, you're out there in a whole different way than ever before, that you are being monitored in a whole different way. But I do want them to understand that the majority of the parents do appreciate their sincere effort, and they're doing great. And the parents are saying, we want to support them every way we can. So any way that teachers can reach out and understand that parents are still working 8-hour jobs.
Absolutely.
And they are concerned about their kids. Lord knows if the other board members are getting calls and emails and texts like I am, they are truly concerned and they want to work with the process. But just make teachers aware that some parents are feeling a little bit bullied, like you're making it difficult to count my child present because you're trying to force them back, and I'm not comfortable with them being on a school bus and in that class. So we need to reassure parents that they are going to get that quality. And at the same time, I applaud them for doing what they're doing because it's not easy. So I'm just sharing what we get.
Right. And I'm going to follow up with, we just need to know this information. Having been a principal, I know that we don't have any principals in our building who don't hold their teachers accountable and who don't want their staffs doing the right things. We just need to know about it so we can address it and fix it. We're principal central office, we're working too hard for things to go unnoticed, and people are misinformed about what's going on in our school district.
Any other questions?
I just got one comment, and then I'm gonna walk out, and I'm gonna be on Zoom meeting like 90% of my board members. So here's what I'm gonna say. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. I think what you're doing, these are unprecedented times. They need to understand that this is not conditional. You have no control over it. I had a conversation with a few business leaders just today. One of them being, she told me not to call her name, but I won't. And she just wanted to commend you guys for a phenomenal job. She knows what she's going through trying to get her people to come to work. And they're in traditional times. So you guys are doing a phenomenal job trying to make up what you need to do. And for those folks that are calling in, especially board members, when you get those phone calls, these people are working out day and night trying to make things right for your children. You need to stand up instead of trying to find ways to critique and everything else. So just share that with your folks in your district, and I'm sure they understand it, but we need to rally with our administration and our teachers to let them know that we're behind them. And you're gonna get a lot of negative feedback no matter what. You're gonna get a lot of naysayers no matter what you do. It's our role and our responsibility to not only be advocates for our district and our colleagues, but as well as our administrators and our teachers as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. 2020, 2021 budget amendments. Ms. Jarrett.
Good afternoon, good evening. I have before you, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're laughing because it's been 2 days.
Okay. I am presenting tonight the budget amendments for funds, Fund 1 State, Federal Fund 3, and Fund 8 Local Restricted Funds. For state funding, the last amendments that were presented were at, as of allotment revisions 23. So since the last board meeting, we've had allotment revisions 24 through 28. And this is, this spreadsheet shows you those reasons for the allotments. The majority of the ones for state being because of reductions due to increases in charter school enrollment. And then you will see the other additions that we've received in additional funding in state funds. The federal, next slide. The federal funding we created the resolution was the best guess estimate of how we would end last year, 1920. And for this budget adjustment, or we're sort of truing up with the majority of the difference in the resolution and the budget being balanced remaining from last year. And as you know, federal funding are grants that are multi-year in most cases and rolling from unspent monies transferring from one year to another. So you'll see here the majority of the difference being from prior year, our current balance being the $20,488,857.01, and the additional funding from federal as of, all of these are as of November 30th. Next slide. And the final amendments that we are asking for approval. We started budget resolution for this fiscal year for the restricted funding and the current budget. There's a difference of $2,172,472.19, with the majority of that with fund balance that we are bringing into this fiscal year for those restricted grants. Those were balances remaining from last year. And then the additional budget amounts for this year's fundings for those partnerships that we have. So we're asking for approval as presented for all of these budget adjustments or budget amendments.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we accept these amendments.
Okay,
presented.
been a motion made by Ms. Chavis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bullock.
E. Bullock. Yes.
E. Bullock, okay. Ms. Chavis?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
I'm a yes. Mr. Bissett?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp? Yes. Mr. Dunn?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Silver? Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock?
Yes.
Ms. S. Bullock?
Yes.
Motion carried. Pierce Group Benefits Contract, Ms. Jarrett.
I believe in October, Dr. Ellis, Superintendent Ellis had Pierce Group present to the board the services that they would provide to the district. Tonight, Dr. Ellis is requesting approval of the contract with Pierce Group Benefits.
Any
as
questions
presented.
Any questions about the Pierce Group contract?
I don't have a question about that, but I do have a question,
Okay,
if I may. Dr. Ellis, I sent you an email that I had been approached or contacted by Minnie Fort Brown about doing a presentation to our board.
Yes, I've talked to her. Hello.
Sign a new contract.
You jumped out.
You can't hear me?
I can now.
I'm having problems with my iPad and I've had to switch and it's not working really well either. But I said that Minnie Fort Brown had contacted me about possibly making a presentation to our board for Mark 3. And I wanted to know if in your contact with her, what the results, what the response was, and if that is something that we might want to, a company we might want to hear from before we actually sign another contract, just to compare and make sure we're getting the best service for our people.
So I have contacted them and I've told them that we are in a rush because we have to go ahead and start this process, because if we don't get this done, they would not have time to start the transition. So they are going to present next year, they said, to our board to discuss their options that they have with their company.
So we don't have till March before we do a new contract?
We were trying to get this done so we could go ahead and start shopping some of the companies that Pierce Group can show us for benefits. That's why we went ahead and went with them to go ahead and start that process. And next year, if anyone would want to present to the board, we would do it earlier so we would have time to either start a transition and start to compare. That was the conversation I had with her.
All right.
I will entertain a motion to accept the Pierce Group benefits contract.
So moved.
Second.
I couldn't understand who.
Bill Sharp, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by
Ricky.
Ricky Jenkins.
Second by Mr. Jenkins. All right, all in favor, Mr. Chavis.
Aye.
Mr. Edwards.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Mr. Bizzett.
Yes.
Mr. Sharp.
Yes.
Mr. Dunton.
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins.
Yes.
Mr. Silver. Ms. Washington.
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock.
No.
Ms. S. Bullock.
Yes.
Motion carried. 2021 National Board of Education meeting dates. This is on the agenda for everybody to see, but I'll just read the first date. Thursday, January the 7th, Monday, February the 1st, Monday, March 1st, Thursday, April 15th, Monday, May 3rd, Monday, June 7th, Monday, August the 2nd, Thursday, September 9th, Monday, October 4th, Monday, November 1st, and Monday, December 6th. I'll entertain a motion, or excuse me, are there any questions about the meeting dates?
I have one question.
Okay.
That January 7 date,
Yes.
will that give the administration enough time after coming back from Christmas break to actually get the information to us? Normally we wait till the next week so they will have time to get us up to date information.
Yeah.
Right with me if you want to delay.
We usually do. So it doesn't push the stuff off.
So what date would that be? The
We haven't delayed it.
14th?
We didn't move them.
Oh, no, though. 11th?
What that new date be?
The 11th would be the second Monday.
Do we go with 11th?
Well, on second Mondays, our attorney already has a board meeting, I think. So we normally do the Thursday.
Yeah, that is correct. I have a regularly scheduled second Monday meeting.
I don't know. I thought it was
Some this
correct.
year.
Dr. Ellis, can your crowd be ready for the 7th meeting? That's the question, I think.
I think we'll be fine.
Well, let's have it that
Move
day.
on.
Okay, we have I will entertain a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting dates.
So
move.
Motion
Second.
by Mr. Chavis, second by Mr. Edwards. Ms. Chavis,
Aye.
Mr. Edwards,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Mr. Bissett,
Yes, sir. I'm good.
Mr. Sharp,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dunton,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Silver, Ms. L. Washington,
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock,
Yes.
Ms. S. Bullock.
Yes.
Motion carried. Superintendent's report.
So briefly, I'm just going to say that I think the word for tonight is heavy lift. I just want to thank teachers, administrators, staff, cabinet for helping during this heavy lift. Thank you, board, because I'm telling you, these are challenging times. The North Carolina toolkit has now been revised for the 300th time, which means it's changing for us. It is tough to manage. So my group, thank you very much for that help. I want to congratulate teachers and thank them for the PD sessions they attended during these sanitizing days we've been having in schools on Fridays. It was to promote remote learning, something we're all learning about. It was very good participation and great collaboration, so thank you. Just want to remind high schools that we will be EOC and CTE testing in December. Students will be required to attend school for in-person testing. So that's going to be our first challenge as we bring high school kids back to be tested. That is a state requirement. All safeguards will be in place. Testing times will be decided through the schools. We'll have a consistent schedule that goes out. Please make sure parents should contact your schools to find out those times. And moving to Plan B, I just want to encourage parents to visit websites, look at some of this information that we keep pushing out there with metrics, quarantines, times, safety measures when your kid gets to the building, what's going to happen, what happens on a bus, because we are not in a normal school year. So when I get questions about why in the world are we doing this and that, I'm telling you, it's because we are in an abnormal school year and we're trying to work within the scope of allowing kids to return, but also there's got to be a safety issue involved, and we try to balance these two issues because it's concerning to me because we're getting calls every day with not clusters, but quarantines, cases, and we're trying to make sure we can operate these schools effectively and efficiently for these students. But also it's got to be safe for teachers and administrators to be able to manage this building. And I'm telling you, that is getting to be a challenge, but I appreciate my staff for helping me with that. Thank you for everything. And I don't think I'll be here. Well, Christmas is around the corner, so I hope everyone has a happy holiday. So thank you.
I don't have much to add to that. I would like to thank everybody at the central office. I would like to thank the parents. I would like to thank the kids for what you're doing. I especially, like I said at the last board meeting, I would like to thank our teachers. I cannot imagine what some of our teachers are going through. I don't know of a single university that teaches this in their teacher education preparedness class. I don't think there's ever been a class like this. Our teachers are really doing a good job. I just could not imagine myself trying to Zoom. It's hard enough, like I said before, doing it with 11 board members. I could not think about doing it with 40, 50 kids. Could not imagine in a day's time. We will make it through this. I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and maybe Santa Claus this year will carry the old COVID back to the North Pole with him. Schedule of upcoming meetings. Work session Thursday, January the 7th at 5 o'clock. Also Thursday, January the 7th, regular board meeting. At this time, will anybody have anything else to add? I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Chavis. I need a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Well, it was unanimous. Motion adjourned.
Dr. Ellis.
Oh,
He's gone. He's out.
Dr. Ellis.